Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox back for another episode, and I'm thrilled to have back with me my good friend and colleague, Sam Silverstein. Sam, welcome back.
Hey, Tom, thank you. It's great to be here again.
Sam, the Accountability Institute, your company has come up with a really intriguing and I think great new service offering that I'd like to visit with you about. You've called it the Fractional Chief Culture Officer. Could I
Yes.
first maybe start by asking you, what is a Chief Culture Officer, or how would you define the role?
Well, a chief culture officer is someone who works very closely, hand in hand, with the CEO of an organization to make sure that they have the culture that the CEO is looking for. All organizations have a culture. It's either a culture by default or a culture by design. And what we want to make sure is that there is a culture by design, that it is very specific, and that it has all the elements in it that the CEO wants to have so that that organization can both perform at its highest level and always attract and retain the best people.
Okay, now let's overlay what's a fractional chief culture officer.
Well, we have a unique set of skills that we've developed over the past 30 years as an organization, and that is to understand what it takes to not only design or reframe a culture, but then how to establish that culture in the leadership of the team and how to disseminate that throughout the organization. And so, well, an organization may not need a full-time employee to do this. As a fractional chief cultural officer, what we do is we come alongside the CEO so the CEO can maintain their focus on those things that they need to be focusing on, but we work hand in hand with her or him to help them not only design and build this culture, but lead this culture and then get all the other leaders on the team on board so they're leading the culture in the same way.
Sam, I have done work as an outsourced chief compliance officer, and frankly, I find the fractional chief culture officer a fascinating development. Who is your target market? Is it Fortune 100s? Is it 500 million to 50 million? Is it all of the above, none of the above, or something different?
Well, we work with all sizes of organizations. I mean, some of our clients have 24,000 employees, some of them have 26. So the services we provide will vary based on the organization. When we get into the large organizations, Tom, it's more of a consulting and advice and helping them stay on track. As we get into some of these organizations that are 100, 150, 200, 300, 500, 1,000 people, those organizations are usually really adept at doing what they do, their business, but they don't have someone that can work throughout the organization, that can touch all the levels with regards to culture. And that's where we come in. So it's not just me, it's my team. We work with leaders at all levels of the organization and get them on track. By coming in from the outside as a fractional chief culture officer, we bring specific expertise and, well, quite frankly, it's like when someone tells you something over and over again, you hear it, but that doesn't mean anything. But when a third party comes in and shares some advice with regards to leadership and connecting it to the culture, sometimes we get heard better than the CEO gets heard. So we can be an instrumental tool for the CEO to be able to get their message deep into the organization.
Sam, you mentioned the phrase we get heard. Do you also we get talked to? Or do you intake or input information that employees may not be comfortable directly telling a CEO about?
Brilliant question, Tom. And so we work one on one with a lot of people in an organization. We'll work with large groups, small groups in the same organization. And that's exactly what happens in these one on one conversations. People start sharing things about what they're experiencing, what they're feeling. They share the good and they share the not so good so that we get this valuable information. But we also have other tools that we use that help us really understand what's going on in that workplace culture.
We've talked about, or we have visited on the Accountability Institute, and how you will work with a client to assess and then make suggestions or recommendations, put a plan in place to manage culture and culture risk and then go forward on that. Would you say this work as a fractional chief culture officer is really just almost a natural extension of the initial work you would do to help a company with its culture?
That's exactly right, Tom. So what this becomes is it's almost like a done with you relationship so that we're providing based on our experience and expertise what you need to know and what you need to do, and we provide the tools for your leaders to be able to implement those things that you're wanting to get done. And then based on our renowned culture audit that we have that measures 15 indices within the organization, we use that to baseline an organization so we know where their strengths and weaknesses are. And then we dial in, we use that as a prescriptive process to dial in on where to focus first, where to focus next, where to focus after that. If you're an attorney or an accountant, you're an expert in law and accounting, bookkeeping, taxes, audit. If you manufacture chairs, you're an expert in manufacturing, you're an expert in chairs. Our expertise is in culture. How do we create a sustainable, high performance culture that always attracts and retains the best people? So we stay focused on what we're focused on, which allows you, the CEO of your organization, to stay focused on what you need to be focused on.
Sam, well, not even typically. Culture extends across every part of the organization, from the boardroom to the shop floor to the probationary employee to the 30-year employee and everyone in between. And it breaks through every silo, or it should break through every silo. How can a fractional CEO hope to get across the breadth and scope of an organization to help it?
Everything flows through leadership. So, first of all, it depends on the size of the organization, the structure of the organization. Are they under one roof? Are they regional? Are they national? Are they international? Because geography matters. And then it's about building a plan specific for that organization so that we make sure that we touch all levels, whether it's in one location, whether it's spread out over a broader region. And and that's the key. It's like we need to find the common thread. The common thread is going to go through a set of values that define that culture. But then how do those get established? Organizations are great at creating values, but they're not always great at living those values at all levels of the organization and attaching all decisions to that organization. But it doesn't matter whether you're one location or multi locations, we need to be living the culture the same everywhere. And that's what we've figured out. Look, Tom, we had a call this past week with a client that we worked with initially 5 years ago, helping them define their culture. At the time, they were number three in their industry and just couldn't seem to get above number three. They focused on being the best they could be, not being the biggest. Well, over the course of establishing this culture, what's happened is they have become the best. Not only have they become the best, they've become the biggest. They moved into the number one position. They are the dominant player in an important industry that supports the steel industry. Their industry standard contract is 4 to 5 months in length. Meanwhile, their contracts are 7 to 8 years in length. And right now, when there's a downturn in the steel industry and in the demand for their products and services, they're the only organization that's profitable. And while other organizations at 40, 50% capacity, they're at 90% capacity and they are the highest priced in the industry. And this all flows through, and they'll tell you this flows through to their culture because they've defined in their culture how their people are going to treat each other, how they're going to communicate with each other, what is excellence, how they're going to connect with and serve their clients, and how they participate in the community. And they operate at a whole different level today than they did 5 years ago, and it positions them for greater success. That's what culture does. So while the CEO's responsibility is to protect and defend the culture, the CEO is always looking at mergers and acquisitions, looking at other business opportunities, making sure that we're on track with the strategic side of planning and what's going on. We come alongside as a fractional chief cultural officer and augment that responsibility for the CEO. So the CEO knows that they have someone who has their back. And when you have someone that has your back, you can focus on what you need to focus on. My team can focus on what needs to be focused on with the culture.
How can you do this on literally a fractional basis as opposed to a full-time basis?
Well, depending on the size of the organization, if you get to a large organization, obviously they're going to need more feet on the ground, and we put more feet on the ground. Ultimately, we want these organizations to be self-sustaining. We want to teach them how to live their culture so they don't need us in place. So their people understand how the culture works so they can always be nurturing it, always making contributions to the culture. So we call it a fractional chief culture officer. It may require several people to perform the task. It may only require one, depending on the size of the organization. But I think the term fractional is more a it's connected more to the length of the engagement. And while we work with people long term, I want and provide other services, I want them my goal is to get them to the point where they're self-sustaining. They understand what their culture is all about. They understand how to lead their culture so that 3 years from now their culture is where it was today or stronger, that it doesn't drift, that we don't get to a great point and then all of a sudden let it erode because this is a continuous effort. As soon as you stop looking at it, it will drift from where you started.
Well, that's really the next point I wanted to tease out a little bit. I've heard you say multiple times, culture is not a one and done. And you have to continually assess, you have to monitor, you have to make changes where appropriate, and you have to engage, engage, engage. Uh, if a CEO gets it enough to retain the Accountability Institute and Sam Silverstein, do you think they understand the second part of that, which is it's not a one and done?
That's part of our responsibilities to make sure that that's in place. You know, Tom, the companies that are really in the worst situation with regards to culture very rarely engage us because, quite frankly, they don't understand culture. They don't realize where they are. And they are where they are because they haven't taken certain steps to make it better. The companies, the leaders that really care about their people and really want that great culture are already on some path. And we come alongside to help them move forward. We want to accelerate that process and we want to strengthen that process. And and our job ultimately, the CEO is the chief cultural officer. And that's their primary responsibility. Protect and defend the culture because if you have a great culture, your company is going to achieve amazing things. And that is the CEO's responsibility. So part of what we want to accomplish over time is to position that CEO for success. And they might need our support initially, but down the line, they're going to be able to take it on their own. Now there's other support characteristics, other support opportunities that we can offer down the line, but that leader is going to own that culture and the leadership below them will own that culture. And that's how we know we've really done our job.
As I mentioned a little bit earlier, culture cuts across every part of the organization. But typically in the past, I've seen culture centered in the HR department, sometimes in the compliance department. Do those functions feel comfortable working with you, or is that really the CEO says, ye shall?
So here's the thing. It's interesting. If culture doesn't emanate from the senior leader, it will never be what it could be within the organization. And so traditionally, or many times, leaders will put the initiative of culture onto HR. Well, HR can run themselves in circles, but if the leader isn't behind them and doesn't support them, HR is going to get frustrated very quickly. And that's what happens. HR is working hard on a culture, and the leader will make a decision that is subversive to that culture, that goes against what they say that they believe. So when we come into an organization, our part of our initial evaluation is the leader all in on this culture? Because if the CEO is not all in, we won't take on that engagement. When we have an all-in CEO, the HR loves for us to come in because we're not looking to take the place of HR. We're looking to make their life easier, and we're looking to provide the tools and the assistance they need to help disseminating this message about culture. But HR gets to focus on HR. The CEO gets to focus on CEO. The VP of sales gets to focus on VP of sales. And our fractional chief cultural officer team gets to focus on the culture and help everyone else get done what they need to get done. And here's what happens. All these different departments will come back with challenges that they're facing. When they come back with those challenges, then we simply go, okay, what is in the culture that is creating the environment that that challenge exists? And so we want to fix those challenges at the cultural level. And that's the difference. It's like an organization that we were working with. He said, we've made such great strides. We're really doing great. But unfortunately, we're not making decisions as far down the ladder as we should be. Everyone's asking up that, it's coming up to the senior leaders to make these decisions. Okay, so why are people at mid and lower level leadership not making critical decisions? Because when you make them at that level, you're saving time, you're implementing, you're getting results. Well, there's a cultural reason for this. And so our job is to uncover that cultural reason and then make the enhancements to the culture that will allow them to make those decisions at a lower level. If you've got siloed communication in your organization, it's a cultural issue. If your clients aren't getting the level of service and brilliance that you want them to have, it's a cultural issue.
Tactically, or kind of drilling down into the weeds, how does this work? Do you provide a contact person? Are there office hours? Is it a set schedule? Is it you pick up or you answer the phone or you answer the email when it comes in, or in your case, the text? How do you, I guess, physically work with a client, or is it different for each client?
Well, that's the beauty and that's what makes it fun for us, but everything is tailored to that specific client because quite frankly, a client with 65 locations and 850 employees is going to be different than a client with 4 locations and 150 employees. The needs are different. So there's a contact person, there's a director of client success, and there's other people that are engaged with that client performing different functions. So someone might be working with HR, someone might be working with the CEO. A smaller client, it could be the same person. A larger client, it could be different people. We have an agenda. Normally, we usually have a 2-phase project. Initially, it's the first phase is the first 90 days. Second phase is the subsequent 9 months. And we lay this agenda out in advance. This is what we're going to do. This is what we want to accomplish. This is how we're going to go about doing it. This is a schedule of meetings, and this is all figured out. And then we do it what you have to do, which means you get into it and something comes up that needs to be addressed and it's not what you expected. So we address it. So maybe there's some extra calls. Maybe there's a leader or two that needs some executive coaching. And so we go down the route of providing one-on-one coaching. It just depends on the organization and the people in that organization exactly what needs to be done. And that's why we use the culture audit, because that gives us the data that we need to know where the strengths and weaknesses are so we can prescribe the right next steps.
Sam, it almost sounds like you're having fun doing this.
I love this. I really do, because culture is all about people. And so it's really great to engage in people with people. And like I said, we choose to work with people that we want to work with. In other words, just because someone contacts us doesn't mean we work with them. We want a CEO that's all in, that really cares about their people and wants to build an amazing organization. And when you're working with people like that, you're going to have a great time. Not that you won't have challenges, but you know what? You'll put your heads together, you'll figure it out, you'll move forward, and you'll help them have those great organizations. And that's an impact on our communities. And that's what accountability is all about. And that's what I live and breathe.
Sam, I can't think of a better way to message to end this podcast on. Sam, if anyone wanted to find out more about the Accountability Institute or this great new service offering, what might be the best place to go or way to connect with you?
Best way to connect, you can go to the accountabilityinstitute.com and you can come to samsilverstein.com. But if you want to connect to me personally and discuss this further, please do send an email directly to me at sam@samsilverstein.com.
Sam, as always, thanks so much. That was great.
Thank you, Tom.